So I was at the local Chinese restaurant about a month or two ago, and one of the other customers was a chef in a restaurant and started a conversation with the owner, and it turned to cooking with a wok, or Wok Hei as it is now called. And somehow I got dragged into this conversation. I don't know how. The owner knows me and just sort of dragged me into the conversation, even though I don't know a lot about cooking. But it just got me interested in looking at, the concept of Wok Hei and what's it about, So I did a little research on the internet, and here's sort of what I found out. So a wok, the term wok just means cooking pot, and it is a Cantonese word. Different places have different words for it, and like I said, this just happens to be the Cantonese version. It was invented about over 2,000 years ago from what I find on the internet, supposedly during the Han Dynasty, which, again, not being an expert on Chinese history, this is somewhat meaningless to me, but that's when people believe it was invented. Now the interesting thing is, while the style, which is now called Wok Hei, has been around for a long time, the term didn't originate until the 1990s. An author named Grace Young wrote a book, The Wisdom of the Chinese Kitchens, Classic Family Recipes for Celebration and Healing. This was back in the 90s, like I said, and she came up with the phrase Wok Hei, which roughly translates into breath of the wok. It's interesting, if you look up other sites, and you look, the definition of Wok Hei, they will talk about the heat transfer on the wok, which brings about flavor, etc., or sometimes known as breath of the wok. So, again, I don't speak Cantonese. I don't know what's the perfect thing, the perfect translation for it. But according to Grace Young, who, like I said, coined the phrase Wok Hei as it applies to cooking, it means the breath of the wok. It's her intent in calling it this was to reflect upon the flavor difference between wok cooking and like standard stir fry. That's really what Wok Hei is. It's a type of stir fry. Although to call it stir fry in the same sense that we would have other diner meals or whatever, there's a difference between it. So it's a type of stir fry. It's a specific type of stir fry, I guess would be the way to put it. And it uses basically a traditional style. Now, like I said, we have the wok. There are two utensils generally used with the wok. One is the chan or chan, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is basically a type of spatula. The other is the biao, which is a type of ladle. Well, again, the websites I saw say ladle, but when you look up pictures of it, it's more of a large spoon. It doesn't look like the kind of ladle you would scoop soup with. It's more of just a large cooking spoon. The handle's got a bit of a bend in it, maybe. The only thing really special about these, other than being a ladle and a large spoon, are that they have long handles. And that is, Wok Hei is done with very little oil over high heat. And so you have these long handles in order to keep, you can manipulate stuff without getting too close to the fire. That's another thing, So I took interest in Wok Hei, just because of this conversation. Have I ever tried it? And the answer to that is no. Will I ever try it? Probably not, because I've got an electric stove. And Wok Hei, you see it on TV, and they got the big flames going on, and they're holding the pot, and basically they're able to keep the wok in the flame and manipulate it around still. And you couldn't do that very well on an electric range because you'd have to have it sitting on the range the whole time. I imagine a very experienced cook, someone who's well trained in wok hei might be able to do it on an electric range, but I wouldn't try it, not without other experience, and I will probably never get that other experience. So I leave it to the professionals to actually prepare my wok hei cooking when I want it. So, like I said, I bring this up because the wok, like I said, the chin and the biao have long handles to keep your hands out of the heat. Looking at pictures of woks online, some of them just had two little handles, like the regular soup pot handles. Some of them had one handle like that, and then a large, more of a skillet type handle. So, back to the original definition of a wok, it's a cooking pot basically. So the wok itself does not necessarily imply wok hei style. I'm imagining because not all woks have these large handles, and so you can't keep your hands out of the heat. Some of them were just intended, you could make a stew or a soup in it, and it wouldn't be considered wok hei style, but it's still cooking with a wok. So there's a difference between wok and wok hei, or just cooking with a wok and wok hei. So, like I said, large heat. This is why the spatula is one of the one of the major utensils used with it. Is because you don't want it just sitting on the pan the whole time, otherwise it's going to burn. So this is why they do think they scoop this wok around. You can see, and they get the air. Sometimes even get the food airborne, which is something else again you couldn't do very well on a electric stove, but you could do better on a gas stove with a high flame. Because again, you don't want the food just sitting on one spot for too long, or it's going to burn. And so they got it where they can scoop it. They also got the ladle, which they can get under the food easier. The spoon, you can scoop stuff around, but you can't get under it as well as you can because the ladle's got the nice flat edge. One site talking about woks does mention that they're partially designed so that you can have the heat in the wok at different temperatures. So the base bowl you can have hotter than the sides, so you can sort of rest stuff on the sides a little longer. If you need to. What else? A few sites mentioned that you want to gradually heat the wok before you put the food in it. And I don't know if that really makes a difference. From a scientific point of view, heating the wok before you put the food in, it's the same temperature once you put the food in. So whether it took you a minute to get to a certain heat or 5 minutes to get to a certain heat, it's going to be the same to the food when you put it in. From a philosophical point of view, you might argue the guy who is patient enough to wait for the wok to heat might just have a different philosophy on cooking and might do a better job than the guy who just heats it up real quick and starts cooking. So I'd be willing to say, depending on the cook, then a good cook could heat it up fast and still do a good job cooking, but I could see an argument from a philosophical point of view that maybe heating it up slowly just gets the cook in the right state of mind to where they're going to do a good job with the final cooking process. That's going to come more to the cook than the cooking itself. Are they patient? Are they not patient? A good cook could probably heat the wok quickly and still do just as good a job with the food as not. I don't know. Again, I've never done wok hei myself. I probably never will. So I can't argue that point to either direction. So what do you make in a wok? And again, it's basically a stir fry. Anything you can stir fry, you could pretty much cooking a wok. For someone to say there is a traditional set of recipes that are wok hei would be incorrect, I think, because again, no one's really sure when and where the wok was originated. China's a big country, lots of different regions. Undoubtedly, the person who started wok hei cooking started using local vegetables and meats and stuff. And then as the wok expanded and other people started using it, they started using their local vegetables and meats. So a wide variety of stuff is used in wok cooking. And to say this is the quote-unquote traditional way to do it would have to be to go and find where it originated exactly. And then you say their local vegetables are the ones that are. So, people have deep fried Snickers bar. I imagine someone could wok a Snickers bar if they wanted to, and it would still be wok hei cooking if they did it using the wok hei style. It would definitely taste a lot different, but there is no. There are certain things you simply can't deep fry well, or stir fry well, and in those cases, I would say yes, those you can't do wok hei cooking with. But for most other things, no one's going to point the finger and say that is traditional cooking and that is non-traditional cooking, just because wok hei refers to the style of cooking more than what is being cooked. So that's all. All that being said, I will probably go and have cashew chicken for dinner tonight, just because I've got wok hei on the mind, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.